you need to check your valve clearance on a K-bike, this is what you need to do. Gain access to the valve cover, cylinder head cover. You're going to remove these two screws. You're going to remove that screw, and then these four and those four. If you have a 16 valve K-bike, K1, 92 K100RS, any K1200LT or K1200RS, K1200RS or K1200LT, if you're doing this, you are wasting your time. I have never in my life seen a 16 valve K engine with tight valves. They get loose. If they're loose, leave them the fuck alone. We're checking this because this is an 8 valve K100. These do tighten up and they do burn valves. 16 valves do not. If you've taken your 16 valve K-bike to a dealership before and they've raped you, charging you to adjust the valve clearance, if they're honest, they're actually going to tell you the valves were loose, not tight. If they're loose, leave them alone. Loose is okay. Tight is not good. We'll be back after Sean gets all these bolts out. So our valve cover is removed. You can see these little half moon rubbers. I'm going to remove them because they're going to get just a little skim coat of silicone sealer when it goes back together. But for now, we're ready to adjust the valves. What you need for tools are feeler gauges in metric: 15, 20, 25, 30. 15 and 20 is the minimum maximum intake. 25, 30 is minimum maximum exhaust. Obviously your intakes are on the top, your exhausts are on the bottom. Write yourself a little cheat sheet so that you can record whether it's a go or no go, minimum, maximum, however you'd like to do it. Sean's going to hold on to that. You need a 19mm wrench, open end. What you are looking for is the cam lobes that point up at you, i.e. the valve is completely closed. You see here we have number 4 intake, number 2 exhaust. So let's start with intake. We have our 15. That is a go. No issues there. Let's get our exhaust. 25 is our minimum. 25 is a go. 30 is going to be a no-go. And we don't care if they're loose anyway. Loose is okay. I cannot emphasize that enough. Loose is okay. If they're loose, leave them the fuck alone. Your next step is going to be to turn the engine over. Our next cam lobe is going to be intake number 2. And be careful not to turn it too much and get your wrench trapped. So there we go. We have our intake. We'll grab our 15 and 20. 15 is a go. Again, we don't care if they're loose. 20 is a no-go. Our exhaust is going to be number 1. We have our 25. 25 is a go. We're going to turn the engine over again. Next up is going to be intake number 1. $15 is a go. 20 is not. And again, we don't care if they're loose. I'm just merely checking. And number 3 exhaust. 25 is a go. We're good. See how incredibly simple this is. It's too bad the adjustment wasn't this simple. Our next up is going to be 3 intake. Help if I grab the right one, dumbass. There we go. 15 is a go. Our exhaust is going to be number 4. 25 is a go. Does that not complete our...
That's it.
That's it. We are done. Everything checked off. You're going to use a razor blade. If you can't get it with plastic razor blade would be good, or some type of scraper. You want the rest of the silicone off. See all of this oil that's pooled up along the bottom, not just on the mating surface where the gasket goes, but above that. You want to get all that out of there. Paper towels, whatever you got to use. You want it nice and clean. You are going to apply, well, we'll cover it in a video, but we're going to apply some silicone to this before we put the cover back on, and I'll give you one other tip you want to do, and we'll be back in a moment. So you have all your surfaces here cleaned up. You've wiped down both sides of the gasket on the valve cover. You put the gasket back on the valve cover, and we see here that we have a little bit of oil that's dripped back down. You have to get this crap off. And if you walk away from this for a moment or two, you're going to have to go right back and wipe it down again, because it's just going to keep drooling oil onto the surface. The most critical points are going to be here, 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 and here. So you're going to use your black sensor safe RTV. You're going to squeeze a little coating here. Don't worry about being super cautious about putting this stuff on. BMW used too much of this as well when they assemble these. If you've ever had the oil pan off one of these, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't and you're really bored, take your oil pan off. You're probably going to fudge your pants when you see how much silicone is floating around in the oil pan, because it's come from here and everywhere else that this engine's put together, and it's made its way through and ends up in the pan. Doesn't hurt anything. Doesn't hurt anything. Unlike the fuel system, you don't want this crap floating around in the fuel system, but anyway. Now you take your cover. I'll point out right now, it is of the utmost importance for you to put these spark plugs leads through the damn cover. You get the cover on backwards.
Yes, I did.
The K1100 is more prone to allowing you to make a mistake than the K100 is. Make sure the plug wires go in. Otherwise, you get the cover on. Plug wires won't fit through the small opening on the back on the 16 valve.
Stop.
What? You good? Hey, you gotta put your little rubbers in. Damn, I'm tired. Get rolling with something else here. And thinking about two things instead of what the fuck we're doing. That's what Sean's here for. And just a very light little skim over there. A little bit out of the Cheese Whiz can, so you get something to remove later when it gets hard. You may have noticed there was a spring underneath that cover. You want to keep that there. Unless you're working on somebody's bike that you don't like, then you can take the spring out and they'll get a pretty good zap if they touch that valve cover with the engine running. It's a static discharge spring. Kind of grounds the cover. That's it. You're gonna put your bolts back in. Look up your torque spec. As I recall, it's some minuscule amount, like 6 Newton meters. Do you need to torque it? Not really. You can tighten it down till it stops. Give the ratchet just a little bit of a snug, and that takes care of it. Then you gotta watch, because these can pop out of place. You want to look as you're tightening down, make sure there's no gasket hanging out, especially in here. That all looks good. We're going to wipe off the excess from the corners. Leave the excess on the front. And we're done. So as I said, look up the torque, or screw these in until they stop, and then just give it a little snuggish, little bit of a turn, as Sean's going to do here in a second. That's it. That's it. So, very simple. Then inspect your spark plugs, replace them if needed. Whether you replace the spark plugs or not, use copper anti-seize on the threads, please. Torque your spark plugs back into 20 Newton meters. Reinstall your plug leads. You will notice each of these leads, this being an 85, these have little tags on them. Somebody numbered these. Didn't have to. There's tags on the leads. There's also tags on the other end at the coil, as we see, number 1, number 4, number 2, tag for number 3 is MIA. It's probably on the other end. And that's it. That's your valve clearance check for a K-bike. If these needed to be adjusted, they are shim under bucket, unlike the 16 valve, which you have to replace the entire bucket. Either way, they're kind of a pain in the butt. And I really can't tell you the last time I've had to do an adjustment on a 2-valve K. It's got to be back. Oof. I have the tool, so it had to be sometime in the last 13 years, and I think it's probably closer to 11 or 12 years ago. So that's it. I hope this was informative, and enjoy your K-bike. These things run forever. You can pound out a lot of miles on these bikes. They were one of the best models BMW made, in my opinion, as far as reliability goes. So enjoy. Ride safe.